Patrick, you and I have just recently met. We sat down for coffee this week. I have not stopped talking about your app since you and I met. I was absolutely blown away. So I'm very excited to introduce you to this group and to the others who will see this on the recording. Patrick has developed an app that will help with people struggling with alcohol dependency. It's my understanding that this could also possibly include maybe drug addiction in the future. Patrick is absolutely the best person to tell us more about it. He's been developing this for over 10 years. Although we've had people present from all over the US, I'm particularly proud to present Patrick because he's from Alaska, because he's doing something amazing and he's here. So Patrick, I'm going to let you move forward and introduce yourself and tell us more about Step Away.
Great. Yeah, thanks very much for the introduction, Jacqueline. Are you going to give me a screen share here? Or,
I think you can share your screen. If you go down to the bottom of the screen, you can share it yourself. Do you see it?
Okay. Oh, I see it. Yep. Okay, excellent. There we go.
Yep, I see it now.
Excellent. Okay, guys. Well, first of all, it's a real pleasure to be here talking to you today. So right now I'm a professor at the University of Alaska Anchorage PhD program in clinical community psychology. Been here for now 11 years. And before that, I was at the San Francisco VA as a psychologist and clinical trainer. And I've also, before that, worked in the New Zealand academic system as a professor there. And that's relevant actually because I've got a project in New Zealand that I'm going to talk a little bit about today as well. So yeah, I'm a native Northwesterner, grew up in Washington State, and yeah, it's great to be in Alaska. So let's just launch into the presentation here. First of all, let me see if I can get the slide. Okay, you guys have that? Okay, good. So, so anyway, so I'm going to be talking about Step Away, which is a smartphone app that I've been working on for 10 years that helps a person to independently manage hazardous alcohol use. And we might ask the question, well, what is the need for something like this? There's a tremendous need for it. Over 25 million Americans struggle with alcohol addiction, and a whole lot more who are sub-threshold alcohol problem drinkers. And you know, the thing that really is intriguing to me is we miss most all of that group from a treatment perspective. We only treat about 10% of them. And it's not really because they don't want treatment, but there's a lot of stigma around, you know, being the guy raising their hand in an AA meeting, hi, I'm Patrick and I'm an alcoholic. People have a hard time getting over that. They tend to only do treatment when they get really severe. And it's also hard to access and sometimes hard to afford, especially in rural locations like in Alaska. And also there's a desire for people to try to do it alone. They want to manage it themselves. They think they should be able to do it themselves. But as we know, that's not a very productive approach. And so, you know, my solution here is to utilize smartphones that nearly everyone now is carrying with them. And people, of course, use them as almost a part of their body. They're almost another appendage to us these days. 1 second. So this has been a long-term process for me. It's been a long-term project. There's over 10 years of R&D now into the Step Away app. It started with an NIH grant that I received in 2009 to develop and test a smartphone-based system for alcohol use problems. And we had really good results from that early trial, even though our software was actually pretty poor. That was back in the day when you had to load an app onto like a Windows mobile phone to get the functions to run in the background. And since then, we have completed 3 more trials of the app in various populations of heavy drinkers and received very good results. I'm going to talk about those a little bit later in the show here, but to some we found 50 to 70% reductions in drinking in all of our populations that have used Stepaway so far. So it's really been shown to be quite effective. It's in its fourth major iteration. We're at version 4.0. It should be done within the month. And each version has been improved based on the findings from the previous research studies. I've taken this very seriously to improve the app based on what the users are telling me. And now I think we have a version that is truly ready to roll. And it's always been on iPhone in the past, but now it's going to be iPhone and Android. So let me just introduce the app to you. On the left there, you can see the home screen, which is actually now a dashboard. And I'll talk about why that is here in a moment. But the primary aims of the app are to enhance awareness of drinking and related problems, to establish a goal and monitor progress, to manage triggers for drinking using tools that the app provides, and to develop new coping strategies and non-drinking activities. Now, the underlying kind of guiding theory here is something called motivational enhancement, motivational interviewing, which really is probably the dominant theory for managing addictions these days. And it really focuses on providing people with the opportunity to make better decisions for themselves through information and feedback. So that's what drives the app. I'm just going to talk very briefly about some of the modules here. So the app is called Stepaway, largely because there's different steps that a person goes through as they use the app. And the first one is an assessment and feedback type protocol in which they're answering some questions and that is determining how much they drink in relation to other people, their BAC when they drink, the consequences for drinking, motivations for drinking, their financial costs for drinking, and also it tells them about their specific kind of drinking times. Now, this is a real key driver in the app because what I hear in our research studies is, that first step there, it made me realize, boy, I've really got a problem here. And I need to think about doing something different. So this sets people up for the next step, which is to set a goal. And so a lot of people don't know what really healthy drinking is or what they should think about as far as a goal. And so the app helps them to select, and they can choose either a moderation or an abstinence goal. And we're providing tailored suggestions based on how severe they are as far as their drinking goes. And then the app tracks progress towards the goal. So if a person sets a goal for 2 days, 2 drinks per day for 30 days, it'll track that and then give them a little reminder to give themselves a reward when they finish up their goal. It also helps people manage cravings. Now, cravings and urges are a real common thing when people have been drinking for a long time. And we have a lot of empirically supported techniques for managing those experiences. And those are all woven into the cravings module. One of the ones that people like the most is called urge surfing. And that's an audio file that helps a person to kind of manage the feeling of the urge coming and going and not doing anything about it necessarily. And then there's also a support step in which a user identifies a support team, and that then is used to facilitate connection with their support team at critical moments, and also to share feedback reports with the user. Now, another important step here is activities. So, of course, when a person is going from a lifestyle in which they've been drinking a lot, they oftentimes, when they stop drinking or drink less, they wonder, well, what am I going to do now? And the fact of the matter is, for people who have been in that lifestyle, they kind of need to change their lifestyle in order to keep their positive change going. And so this step stresses the importance of these new non-drinking activities and helps a user to select them and provides smartphone scheduling functions. Another step here is the reminder step, and this is a motivational step. It helps people to kind of stay motivated and remember why they wanted to change their drinking in the first place. And they select their top reasons for changing their drinking, and also some photos that remind them of why they want to make a change. Maybe people put in a photo of their kids, their wife, etc. And these become available at critical times for the user. Now, one of the things that we're realizing is really a core functionality here is this ongoing assessment and feedback piece. So again, we've done 4 trials of the app, and I hear the same thing every time, which is, you know what, that continual feedback about how I'm doing through your weekly reports, that and the feedback I see on the homepage, that helps keep me motivated, and it really helps keep people engaged over a long period of time. Now, a lot of health apps, they get used twice, if that. People are using StepAway for many months and years, actually. So, and this consists of a daily interview, so they get alerted, hey, want to talk to me for a second? And it asks them about their ongoing drinking and their triggers. It's very brief. And that helps populate the information on the dashboard, and a weekly check-in report that highlights how they're doing over time. Now, we've actually enhanced this in the last version because we realize how important the assessment and feedback part of it is. So now the homepage is a dashboard, a little bit like what some of the other tracking apps are doing. So, I'm going to talk about a few different studies today. I certainly don't have enough time to talk about all of them. That would take many hours. But the ones that just recently finished, I think, are pretty fun. So the recent project here was done in New Zealand, and it was funded by the New Zealand Health Research Council. My colleague Natalie Walker is the PI. And with that project, we wanted to create a New Zealand-focused version of StepAway that reflected New Zealand type drinking. So their drinking is actually quite different than ours. The fact of the matter is they drink a lot more, and they tend to binge drink quite a bit too. So our app has been very focused on kind of Americanisms and utilizing American data, but we had to really revamp the whole app to make it specific to New Zealand. And so we did that based on a lot of stakeholder and potential user input. And then we ran a trial for 6 months to determine, hey, is this helpful and why? And one of the things I want to underscore here is there's a very high need for this in New Zealand, as evidenced by when we ran the recruitment in New Zealand in Auckland, we restricted it to Aucklanders. We had 20,000 hits on the website in the first month to participate in a study that was oriented towards an app to help people with their drinking. And people were so keen to use the app that they were actually gaming our selection criteria, because they'd realize, oh, I didn't get selected into the study because my scores are too high. They'd come back through the selection process and try to have lower scores so they could get into it. And so, we put a stop to that after like 3 days, but it was instructional that, boy, there's people really keen for using this. And so I'm just going to very briefly talk about what we found. First of all, we got really good outcomes here. In fact, we had the best result of any that we've had in our trial so far. People used the app for 6 months. 64% said they were still using the app after 6 months, which to me is a fantastic finding. And a majority said the app was very to extremely helpful in changing their drinking. But this graph, I think highlights to me the radical change we saw from baseline to 6 months. And we went from around 6 days per month of hazardously drinking, binge drinking, to less than 1. And their overall change in drinking was around 70%. So we had a fantastic outcome there. In fact, our plan in this New Zealand study was, well, first we'll do this, small trial, and that will inform a really large nationwide rollout and nationwide study, millions of dollars, all that sort of thing. And what we saw was there's so much need, so much interest, and the results were so good that we're thinking that we just need to, my colleagues are saying, look, we just need to make this available. We need to roll it out somehow. And that's one of our new challenges is, getting funding from the New Zealand government to do this. The Seattle VA study, so I've done 2 studies in VA now, one in Seattle, one in Palo Alto. I'm just going to talk about the Seattle study because I think it's kind of, it's instructive. So we looked at heavy drinking Iraq and Afghanistan vets who were not in VA care and that were drinking heavily. One of the things that's interesting about the study is that in the recruitment, kind of nationwide recruitment, we recruited for people to evaluate a health app, not to engage in something to change their drinking. And then users were kind of like surprised, like, oh, this thing wants to change my drinking, you know. So it's a different kind of population that we got there. These weren't people who were like, yeah, I've got a problem, I better try to get in that study. These were people trying to make $100 to evaluate a health app. And we had another very good set of results here. So first of all, the app was used by 96% of participants first week, and 45% at 6 months were still using it daily. We had a 48% reduction in days spent hazardously drinking, which is a very good result. And the thing that the VA was the most excited about was that the app moved 65% of the people from you know what, I'm not really interested in making a change to my drinking, you know, baseline, to I've got a problem, I better do something about it. So we moved people through these stages of change with the app. And that is actually a really exciting finding, because according to VA, they try to do this all the time with like doctor checkups and, you know, doctor queries, and this did it a lot more effectively than their previous attempts. So, you know, we also have 2 other studies that, you know, they've been all very, very successful. I'm very confident with the effectiveness of the app. It is really helping people, and it's helping people in a way that is, you know, helping them to stay focused, helping them to keep accountable to a goal. And we're seeing reports that the app gives them a sense that they have something on their side to help with a problem that's been hard for them in the past. So what are we working on now? Well, right now I have another NIH grant that I'm finishing up. And in that grant, we have made a really excellent new version of the app. And it's the 4.0 app I've been talking about, available on iOS and Android. And we've also created a chatbot that does the same sort of things as the app, but does it in a conversational manner through Facebook. So it's a Facebook Messenger app that is really exciting, really experimental. I think that's probably where this type of intervention is moving, is more like in the conversational zone. So we'll see how that plays out. And we want to launch the new app through iTunes and Google Play sometime soon. And my early thoughts on that are that it should be a freemium model with, you know, base version of, you know, getting some, you know, assessment and feedback. And then if they want to continue using it, it will be a monthly subscription. And my goal is to make it very affordable so that large numbers of people can get some help with this. And so I'm trying to also get funding for rollouts in both the VA and New Zealand. It's interesting how you can demonstrate that something works extremely well at extremely low cost, but then to get the stakeholders to, you know, start writing checks is another difficult hurdle. And I think I'm making some progress in New Zealand. VA, it's a tough nut to crack, to be honest. And I'm also working with Health Atlas, which is a Boston-based company, and they work with corporations throughout the nation to manage addiction in corporations, and they want to roll Stepaway into corporate health plans, and where we have a system we're going to test out here in November, I think. And we'll, you know, test the Stepaway chatbot. Another thing that I'm actually really focused in on is trying to do something here in Alaska, because you know, it's funny how I'm making, you know, apps for New Zealand, but I haven't really worked with an Alaska based group yet. And it's not because I haven't tried, it's just, you know, these are challenges organizationally. So I'd love to get an Alaska based project going on. And finally, you know, this fact matter is the company's me. And I'm a full-time professor, and, you know, I've been the CEO, COO, head of accounting, bookkeeping, janitorial, and in this next phase, which I consider to be sort of the, you know, the business phase, I'm going to need some assistance. So that's what I have for you today. I'd love to hear comments, questions.
All right, Patrick, thank you so very much. I think just like me, everybody who's participated will be talking about this with everybody they meet in the next week. It's truly exciting. and you'll have another opportunity to tell people because you've agreed to be one of our speakers for Accelerate Alaska.
Yeah.
And thank you. We are running a little bit short for questions, but one thing I wanted to really get this group to understand is that Patrick really would like to have some warm handoffs to maybe somebody at ANTHC or many of the organizations, Lizette, you might work with, or you, Kim. So now that you've seen how exciting it is, if you could think of maybe some email introductions that might be helpful for Patrick or people who should know about this, that would be great. I have one question, and then I know Kai always has a question, but I was wondering how, when you handed it off to the VA participants and they kind of were indirectly introduced, was that something that they eventually, were they okay with that, even though they didn't immediately understand that it was to reduce their drinking?
Oh yeah, they were fine with it. You know, that we didn't have any negative reactions to that strategy at all. And the VA was interested in taking that approach because one of the things they really want to do is to bring people into the fold, and they're having a hard time getting these younger Iraq, Afghanistan vets to come in. And they were wondering, well, you know, if we offer something, would people then use it and find it helpful? You know, even though they might not be asking for the service. So the approach made some sense. And I was actually really intrigued to see that people engaged with it, and then they started thinking, maybe I do need to do something about this. And then they became active in a change process.
I think that's truly exciting because it takes away the need to actually have people self-identify and really maybe work with those people who are not really not cognizant of the fact that they might have a problem. So truly exciting. All right, I'll open it up to anybody else who might have a question.
I'll bite.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Patrick, you and I have talked about this for a while, and I'm interested in your perspective at this point on what we can do to create an environment or support for piloting healthcare-related innovations in Alaska. I'm really fascinated with the fact that you've ended up both with the NIH support, but you've ended up, working in New Zealand and doing piloting there. And I'd love to think that we could create an environment where something like this that so obviously hits Alaska priorities and needs would have a way to be piloted and developed here without you having to run, literally around the world to find a pilot. What's your thought about what we do to create more pilot opportunities and support something like this in the future?
Oh, it's a great question. I think there's, plenty of people around, UAA, UAF, UAS, wherever, that have ideas, but I think it's pretty challenging, to take your idea from the idea phase into more of an action phase. And I think that, the fact of the matter is it requires funding. And I think there could be some more support for people to get launched. I know there's been a little bit here and there. In fact, I got a little bit of money from a launch program, like $3,000 a couple of years ago, that was sure helpful. But the fact of the matter is, some of the stuff's pretty expensive. Like there's been over $1 million so far in development of just the app in Stepaway so far. So my sense, Kai, is that there's support. There's just needed support for for developing these ideas into something that actually is a real project. And I'm just not seeing a whole lot of that out there these days, just from where I sit. And getting this NIH money, it's a real challenge. Like my last grant, I think I applied 2 or 3 times, and it's an uphill battle. You're competing with everybody, Harvard, Stanford, you name it, and it's tricky.
Well, I think you'd be congratulated for having gotten it, and I just want to figure out how we in Alaska, right next door to you, rise to the challenge of the effort you've put in to take it this far, that we figure out how to put out the effort to meet you in the middle, to have created opportunities where this thing would be getting trialed and developed right here in our own backyard, where we have clearly a demonstrated need and opportunity for what you're doing there. So it just drives me nuts that this thing isn't actively being used and trialed more here.
Yeah.
I agree. So Patrick, we're a bit over time. I want to end with what you would like us to do for you as a community. I've already asked about, warm handoffs to other people, but can you think of anything else that we could do? And then we'll continue this conversation next week at Accelerate Alaska.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think really that's where I'm at right now, is I could use some connection with people who could, be decision makers. So, I don't necessarily know those people myself. I'm not as integrated into the business community or into the kind of healthcare upper echelon as what I could be. And I think, developing those connections is definitely the next step. And for those people to hear what we can do is really key for getting an Alaska-based project moving.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yes.
I know we're almost out of time, but I just have to say something about FASD. We met with Congressman Don Young last week, and he was saying to us in words, something has to be done about FASD. What is the answer? And I have to tell you, this is something that, inexpensive, accessible, available, and I can connect you to people in the Governor's Council that are very actively working on this. And if it were purchasable in the way that you talked about, like through Google, I think it would have to show some results in that arena before we could get serious money for it. But I think if there were serious rate reductions in FASD, there would be money.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. That's a great connection.
All right, I can connect you by email afterwards. Appreciate that, Lizette. I want to thank everybody who's participated today, and please reach out to me or to Patrick directly if you have follow-ups. And Patrick, so thank you very much for your time and for your presentation.
Thank you for inviting me. It's great, and it's great to meet all you folks. It's a pleasure.
All right, well, thank you, everyone, and see you at Accelerate Alaska, and thank you especially to Kim, who has kept us all organized and keeps the newsletters informing everybody about these meetings. So